Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and this piece of news caught my attention today. This is, here's how Brian Brooks disagrees with Fed Chair Jerome Powell on the digital dollar. Says acting comptroller of the currency, Brian Brooks told The Scoop that a CBDC design should come from the private sector, while here it says the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell told the House Financial Services Committee last week that it's the role of the central bank to craft the digital dollar, since the private sector isn't involved in creating the money supply. A couple of interesting quotes here from Brian Brooks. The problem will have to be solved, but I don't think America necessarily has to have the government leading in order for America to lead, he told The Scoop. The government didn't give you the iPhone. When we usually do best as a country is when we're harnessing our market dynamic to let innovators motivated by profit instead go and build stuff. The government can build guardrails, he argued. My thought about all of this is that the role of government in a stablecoin project, for instance, is to say, listen, here are the collateral requirements that have to be observed. And then finally, let me do a refresh here. He added, I don't really think the public would welcome the idea that private employees who are not accountable solely to the public good would be responsible for something this important. And that's from Powell. So you can kind of see how this little argument's falling out. Now, this was interesting too. Yesterday, I showed you this. PayPal, and by the way, Ripple put out another Ripple drop today. We've got some great video in this video. PayPal, Venmo to roll out crypto buying and selling. We covered this yesterday. Well, then there was this tweet that came out. I got this from Stuart at Stuart680777797. And this came out, and it said, this is from, apparently Mickey B must have found this because he credits Mickey B. But this is a video, and I think this is someone from PayPal. Watch this.
Up from there is the payments operating system. This includes identity, payments, risk, compliance, and credit. And finally, the heart of PayPal, which is the experiences. And these experiences are the ones for merchants on the one hand and for consumers on the other side. The most important thing we do at PayPal is, of course, security. This is the number one thing. We are in the business of trust, and security is the number one thing that we need to build for. To give you an idea of the scale, as I mentioned, we did $456 billion in payments last year. We operate in about 200 different markets, about 100 currencies. And last year, the peak day was about 29 million payments on a single day. This translates to about $14,450 per second on average. Just imagine the peaks. To power all of this, we have 2,700 different application services, which are built and maintained by about 4,500 engineers across the world. Last year, in 2017, we did 17,000 software releases. Our internal infrastructure is about 200,000 servers, about 27 megawatts, and we have 238 petabytes of data, all growing at about 30.
Okay, so that's PayPal. Now look at, I don't know, the only one that I'm really focused on is a couple, but I'm really focused on this one. But let's look, I couldn't even read what that one said. I'm assuming these are PayPal people that they're pointing to, and they've got XRP on their board that they're working with. Now this interested me because it's got Venmo and PayPal, which is what the announcement just was. And it says the flywheel effect. And I think this says in new and different channels. And then it says here, expanding offerings in new markets. This is a PayPal slide, it looks like. But don't forget that, the flywheel effect. That didn't come out of nowhere, did it? And then, of course, on the Global Agent Network, this is PayPal's right there. Now, but let's see if there's anything else on this. So anyway, But the main thing I want you to focus in on is the flywheel effect. Words mean things, folks. Words mean things. Now, remember that because we'll get back to it. And as you look here, I forgot, I also wanted you to see this, that they were focused in on how there's an X right here. And anyway, I just thought a few of those things were kind of interesting. And then you've got an X here. This is the Google Cloud, PayPal, and they're showing the X there. And then you go down. Let me see if there's anything else interesting. Just kind of, it looks like a few things are coincidental. Now, like, look, X, there's an X right there. Now, Flywheel. This is exact, for those of you that don't know it, Swell 2019. This is what Ripple put out. The flywheel set in motion. And remember, words mean things, folks. If they're talking about Flywheel over at PayPal, and then all of a sudden Flywheel's being talked about, Flywheel being set in motion is being talked about Ripple and the XRP ledger, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, come on. You can't make this stuff up. All right. So then there's this. This was interesting today as well. Vanguard unveils foreign exchange blockchain project with BNY Mellon, State Street, Franklin Templeton. Now, we've been talking about BNY Mellon and State Street. Remember, those are two of the largest traditional custodians in the world. Those are two of the largest ones. Now, and we've shown you how BNY Mellon, there's two guys that are from BNY Mellon that have to do with PolySign. And I've also gone over with you how BNY Mellon was the bank, the custody company that helped the U.S. government with TARP back in the financial crisis. Today, giant asset manager Vanguard outlined details of its latest blockchain project. It's exploring blockchain for FX forwards for the over-the-counter currency market. It conducted a proof of concept collaborating with BNY Mellon, State Street, and Franklin Templeton. This follows other blockchain projects for managing index data and asset-backed securities, all in collaboration with New York enterprise blockchain firm Symbiont. And then it goes on down here. This is interesting. Following the 2008 crisis, there's been a regulatory push to standardize and get more control with respect to over-the-counter derivatives. Industry body ISDA worked with the industry on the common domain model, which, apart from data standards, specifies processes or workflows for contracts such as foreign exchange forwards. Don't forget these names. One other thing popped in my head when I saw this. Franklin Templeton, this is an article from 10 months ago. Franklin Templeton plans mutual fund tokenized on the Stellar blockchain. Just thought that was worthy of mentioning. All right, saw this. I was just going to read this real quick. The financial expert has been warning for weeks of an epic downturn of the buck that could signal the end of hegemony. I think I said that word right. Of greenback as a reserve currency, an event that would ripple through the global financial markets. Ripple being the key word, right? Okay, so here Steve Gulbranson made me aware that Ripple did another Ripple drop today. I went through it, and I am going to play for you. And there's some long segments here because this was a really good Ripple drop, in my opinion. We're going to start at 443 here and let you hear Brad Garlinghouse.
Those businesses have been impacted negatively, but the digital-only or digital-first businesses have grown quickly, and you've seen average transaction size grow and things like that. But I'll also just mention, in a world where we're seeing a lot of volatility, a lot of uncertainty, and I have also said this about Ripple for a long time, we're playing the long game, and I do think that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and that definitely goes for a time like this particularly.
Since the start of the global pandemic, Italy's seen an 81% increase in e-commerce transactions. What kind of impacts do you think we'll see on on-demand digital payments going forward?
I think the macro trend line, we're already on a trend line to moving from cash to digital, and I think this is only, the environment we're living in right now has only served to accelerate that. It's happening more quickly. Yeah, I mentioned earlier that we are definitely seeing some of the digital players, they are thriving. Senders are accelerating usage of payment providers and using apps rather than accepting cash at a physical location. if you're dependent upon physical locations, that's a restriction given the kind of shelter in place and quarantine dynamics we're seeing globally. And so, across RippleNet, we are seeing some changes in payment volumes between countries that experienced bigger swings. Some of that's even manifested in exchange rates. Japan to Vietnam and other corridors like US to Brazil, where fiat currencies have changed exchange rates more materially, and so that has also impacted volumes. It's too early, I think, to really know definitively, are these permanent fluctuations or permanent changes or just temporary fluctuations? And I think even though we may see some corridors and some volumes drop in certain use cases, flows that we're seeing that are digital on both ends actually continue to grow, and the migration to those are growing.
That makes a lot of sense. So does the global pandemic have any impact on how RippleNet can process its payments for customers?
Many of our customers need RippleNet, and specifically on-demand liquidity, what we call ODL, more than ever. I think we're able to alleviate some of the stress that capital has become even more scarce in some ways, despite interest rates going down and things like that. The ability to raise capital to grow is even more restrictive in some ways. And so the dynamics of how existing correspondent banks manage and remittance companies manage the pre-funding, I think it's an example really which increasing the demand for the products we have brought to market, and that we can alleviate some of the stress caused there. Look, at the end of the day, I think it's more important than ever that we at Ripple are in a position to support our customers. I mentioned earlier, it has been a kind of mantra for us that Ripple's open for business. We want to make sure that we're able to support our existing customers, continue to add customers onto RippleNet, and for those that are relying on something like on-demand liquidity, that they can still continue to grow their business and not be constrained by some of the capital requirements that are needed in traditionally, Nostro-Vostro account relationships and that pre-funding. But so far so good, and I think we're going to continue to see the overall pandemic, I think, positively impact demand for and usage of some of the products and some of the features across RippleNet.
With ODL using XRP to transact, is there any threat on its ability to settle if there's significant volatility on the underlying digital asset?
Look, as I was just saying, I think first and foremost, on-demand liquidity has incredible utility for customers, and I think we're seeing that now as much as ever. And we're getting that feedback directly from our customers, even more so now that we've sort of heard things like it's been a lifesaver. I think the current volatility has highlighted the need to continue to invest in our products, to invest in the partnership relationships, and really even to continue to invest in the clarity of how the XRP markets are working globally. But at a broader level, crypto markets have been really volatile. And when you look at the big picture, there's a whole bunch of markets that have been volatile. Year to date, crypto is up somewhere around 10 to 12%. Gold is up around 13%. And the S&P 500 here in the United States is down about 15%. So I think there has been, and I think there'll continue to be a lot of volatility. I also think you're seeing that volatility, as I mentioned earlier, in the FX markets. So when some providers are very dependent on the liquidity in the traditional FX markets, we certainly saw this in the Philippines, where institutional markets team has had to do a lot of work overtime to ensure there's sufficient liquidity in our on-demand liquidity markets. And there are actually times when on-demand liquidity was able to provide a solution when the traditional FX markets actually weren't able to, particularly in the Philippines, for a period of time. So we're getting smarter about how volatility impacts our business. And I think this has certainly been an extreme example, but we've been fortunate to be able to continue to serve the customer and make sure Ripple is open for business.
I thought that was a really good clip there with Brad Garlinghouse to bring everybody up to date. This one is also a really good clip. Let me see if I can get us to the right spot here. Here we go.
So why is a decentralized system like the XRP ledger?
I'll tell you what's funny about this clip is that David Schwartz looks like he's very uncomfortable in reading this. He looks like he's reading it off of a teleprompter of some sort or something, but he looks so unnatural for him.
Uniquely positioned to succeed in today's environment.
Over time, proof-of-work-based systems like Ethereum and Bitcoin have actually become more centralized as mining has become increasingly concentrated in smaller groups and in smaller geographic regions. Consensus-based systems like the XRP ledger don't work that way. They don't have that inherently centralizing tendency, and they can provide a much higher assurance of fairness to everyone who chooses to use them.
So what strengths does the XRP ledger offer a world with an increasingly remote workforce that we're seeing today?
The XRP ledger is an open source, decentralized technology that anyone can build on and work with. Anyone working from anywhere can download the source code to the XRP ledger, run a node, run a validator, develop on top of it, build tools to work with it, or use it for any purpose they want without having to get anyone's permission. Today, Ripple's Spring effort is providing tools and support to make it even easier to develop on top of the XRP ledger.
How does the XRP ledger make on-demand liquidity an even more reliable payment system during turbulent times?
It's recently become much more difficult to conduct business in person, and because distant systems like package shipping and the internet are gluing the world together now, businesses are being conducted over even longer distances than they were before. It's even more important to enable payments across currency. There isn't a global currency. People want to pay with the currencies that they're used to, and people want to receive payments in the currencies that they're used to. So when you have transactions between people that use different currencies, you need some way to make those payments work quickly and efficiently. The XRP ledger has a decentralized native digital asset, XRP, that is liquid to every major fiat currency through a large number of exchanges. By using that intermediate currency, payments can easily be effected across currencies and across the planet. Ripple offers RippleNet as an enterprise payment system with an on-demand liquidity solution that uses XRP to make rapid fiat payments across different currencies.
When you established the XRP ledger, was sustainability a key factor?
This was back in 2011 and 2012, and I think it was just starting to become noticeable that systems like Bitcoin, based on proof of work, would encounter sustainability and scalability challenges. That was definitely one of the factors that went into the design of the XRP ledger. It doesn't require the energy consumption and impose the scalability limitations of proof of work. Proof of work systems like Bitcoin and Ethereum have today encountered significant sustainability and scalability challenges. The XRP ledger's consensus-based design provides very fast transaction confirmations at very low speeds and doesn't have the kind of resource consumption that proof of work-based systems have.
I hear Ripple's launching a podcast around some of these similar topics, and it's featuring you as the host. So, could you tell me some more about it?
I am super excited to announce that I'm hosting Ripple's first podcast, Blockstars, coming out the first week of May. I don't want to give away any of the surprises, so I think I'll just say, please listen. I think you'll enjoy it.
Okay. And then finally, they have a clip in here of Ashish Burla that I wanted to show you right in here. Here we go.
More than not, I've seen that there's a lot of new kinds of product features that we could potentially build for these customers that solve big problems for them that are only larger now with the pandemic. So, for example, we hear more now than prior to the pandemic that folks do not want to pre-fund global currencies around the world. Why? Because, for example, the peso has depreciated 30% against the dollar. That's 30% less cash that our customers have globally. And so listening to these customers and them telling us where their pain points are, and some of these pain points are even larger, helps us become better, better solution providers, helps us be more empathetic to some of their needs, and at the end helps us develop a better product for them.
How are you personally?
All right. So I thought that was a pretty darn good Ripple drop that they did today. So what I did is I pulled most of the things that had to do with on-demand liquidity or XRP. But it's worth a watch if you want to go back and watch the whole thing. Now, under the things that make you go section of this video, now remember in the Ripple drop, I'm finding it interesting that David Schwartz was going out of his way to basically say proof of work does not work, it doesn't scale. I get the feeling that Bitcoin is being targeted not just by some of the people at Ripple, but I wonder if Bitcoin is in the crosshairs of others, and I don't know what others, but look at this. Things that make you go, Honeywell's new quantum computer edges closer to threatening Bitcoin. Okay? And this is the article right here. It's announced that its new quantum computer has reached a quantum volume of 64, twice that of IBM and Google's rival machines. And let me see if I had, I just want to read this beginning part here. Quantum computers could theoretically be used to attack Bitcoin, although the crypto industry is preparing defenses. They say its newly launched quantum computer is the most powerful in the world. The machine has achieved quantum volume score of 64, twice that of IBM and Google. Now, when I saw this, it reminded me of this first, which is the article the other day, Bolton's book, John Bolton, that's coming out with a book on Trump. President Trump wanted to go after Bitcoin as early as 2018. Well, if you tie these two things together, it also reminds me of this. Does anybody remember this? Back 1/9/2019 update, Trump signs quantum computing bill into law. The National Quantum Initiative Act would provide up to $1.275 billion subject to annual appropriations to the Department of Energy, National Institute of Standards and Technology, and the National Science Foundation over the next 5 years for research and development of quantum science and information technology. So that brings me to this. This is an article from March 5th, 2020. Could quantum computing help beat the next virus? So anyway, go down to here. But Google, Amazon, Intel, Microsoft, and Honeywell, which is the company mentioned in this article, Honeywell's new quantum computer edges closer to threatening Bitcoin, and Honeywell are among other tech stalwarts working in the field, as are several venture-backed global startups. Next line says, the U.S. government, which is in a quantum race against China, has also lent support. In late 2018, President Trump signed the National Quantum Initiative Act into law to fund quantum research to the tune of $1.2 billion over a 5-year period. So yes, Matt Crew is correct. Things that make you go, I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button. And ask your friends and family what they think this quantum computing thing might be about. Is it for the purpose of destroying Bitcoin? Thanks for listening.